Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video we're discussing The House Across the Lake, written by Riley Sager. It's a mystery and a thriller. There are some tropes in the book, but I did enjoy this story. I enjoyed it a lot. The tropes are, we have an unreliable narrator who's also a bit of a drinker. Now we see that in some other thrillers. And the disappearing woman, that's a trope as well. So there's a few tropes going on in this book, but despite them, I did enjoy the story quite a lot. There's a lot to like about this book. I enjoyed the setting. The house is on an isolated lake, so it's very remote. So you've got that atmosphere, that sense that there's no help around if you're in danger. I enjoyed that a lot. Also, there's a storm approaching, and this storm is going to be quite big. And that just adds extra atmosphere in the background of this book. And that atmosphere plays out almost all through the story. So while you're reading this, you're expecting this huge storm to approach. That just adds quite a lot to this story. Basically, the story is this. We have Casey. Now, Casey is an actress. She's in her late 30s, I think, in the book, and she's a widow. And she's also got a bit of a drinking problem, and her mother has ordered her, basically, to stay at the family's house on this lake. And she doesn't enjoy it very much, and despite the fact that her mother tells her not to drink, she still does, because a neighbour who lives a few houses over is able to bring her alcohol. Anyway, she's at this lake, and it's not the best setting for her, because the lake is where her husband drowned. So you can imagine what it's like for this woman Casey to stay there for a month or so. Casey is a bit of a loner, likes her own company, but one day she sees something unexpected. She thinks she sees somebody in trouble in the water in the lake. And so she rushes down, jumps in her boat, and heads across to where she thinks this person is. And she does. She finds somebody there. And when she rescues this person, it's a woman, she thinks this woman is dead. She's not breathing. Casey just thinks that how is she going to get this person into the boat by herself? But the woman does regain consciousness and Casey rescues her. And she finds out this lady's name is Catherine. And Catherine used to be a model. And now she's married to a younger CEO of a tech company. And this guy, he owns some sort of social media company. So they become sort of friends, acquaintances after that rescue. And in the days that follow, Casey starts to become obsessed with watching their house. And she's watching them through binoculars. And one day she thinks she sees an argument between them, and it's night time when she sees this. And she thinks the argument is getting physical as well, and she's worried. Then the next morning, Catherine is gone. She's not there. And Catherine's husband tells Casey that she's gone back to the city. They had a fight and she went back. But Casey doesn't trust that. She thinks something's a bit up. So she does some digging. And she finds out it may not be the truth. But we have more things playing out in this story as well. So on Casey's side of the lake, there's 3 houses. Her house is in the middle. And in one of the houses next door, and when I say next door, it's still, quite a distance away, and there's trees in the way, things like that. There's a strange man in that house anyway. And he's an ex-policeman. And this guy's wife died in mysterious circumstances as well. So Casey's not sure what to think about that. Could this guy be dangerous himself? He comes across as being genuine and nice. And Casey and this guy who's called Boone, they did become friends quite quickly. But there's that shadow hanging over Boone as well about his ex-wife's death. And Casey just starts to wonder, is this guy dangerous? Is this guy somehow connected to Catherine's disappearance? And in the backdrop of this story is this really huge storm that's approaching. And it's meant to be a large storm, and when storms hit this area, sometimes the houses lose power for days. So that's looming in the background. And when I was reading this, I was waiting for that storm to hit. I was hoping it was going to be a big event in the book and cast everyone's houses into darkness, and maybe even at night. I was waiting for that moment. I won't tell you if that moment appears in the book. You can find out for yourself. But you do expect that to happen when you read this. We do have familiar tropes in this story. We have a protagonist who's got a drinking problem and who's unreliable as a narrator. We have a lady who vanishes suddenly overnight. We have a protagonist who isn't believed when she's telling people there's something wrong. There's something wrong that this person's disappeared, but nobody believes her. They start thinking she's crazy. And part of that is because of her drinking. That's a trope as well in many thrillers. And then we have the person that the protagonist is watching, knows she's watching, and confronts her and watches back. That happens in thrillers as well. So there's quite a few tropes playing out in this story. But I didn't mind that. The story was well told. The story is well controlled. The characters in this book are quite brilliant, I think. And all the action plays out quite neatly. And it's very believable, all the action as well. Even though there's things that happen that are over the top. Of course they are in these stories. I mean, a lot of over the top things happen in this type of thriller. But they all feel real in the context of the story. Even though I enjoyed the mystery, even though I enjoyed those tropes in the book, even though I enjoyed the characters and I found the protagonist captivating and engaging in the story. So all those things are positives. The structure of this story bugs me. It's structured in a way that I don't like. I understand it's a personal thing, it's a personal bias for me, but it's structured in the way that we have part of a conclusion at the start of the book. So the first thing you read is something that happens at the end of the story, basically. And then it switches between that and the lead up to that moment, all through the book. What's the point of that? I don't know. I don't understand why authors write in that way. They give us the ending first and we're expected to read all the way through up to the ending. I don't get that as a structure in a book. I wish people wouldn't do that because it's quite pointless. Why do I want to read the ending first? If I want to do that, I'll read the end of the book first and then start from the front of the book towards the end. I don't want to read the end of the book first. Casey, who's our main character, I did enjoy this character despite all the tropes. And one of the reasons I enjoy this character is because the author creates her like a normal, average person. Now, in the book, she's an actress and she's quite well known. But through her dialogue and her interactions with other people, in person and on the phone, she becomes across like a normal person, like an average person on the street. I think that was done very well, and it makes her more personable as a character, and people can relate to her more as a character as well. So I think the author made great choices when developing this character, and also her history feels so real as well in this story. Catherine is another good character, that Catherine being the person across the lake, the ex-model who vanishes. She's very engaging as a character, and another character that just comes across like an average person. Again, a clever choice by the author to do that. Through Catherine's body movements and her facial expressions, we get to understand and read so much about her and what she thinks about certain situations as well that she's in. And we see that through the main character's eyes as well. So it's quite clever to give us a lot about Catherine through the main character's eyes. So cleverly created, a good history as well for this character, and another good choice to make this character to seem like an average person. Boone, who's the strange neighbour in the house next door to Casey, he's used very well in the book because you've got questions about him through the story. He's suspicious. He has a wife who died under mysterious circumstances. Was he responsible for that? Is he dangerous? All these questions play out in the book. And he appears at different times in the book that make him more suspicious as well. So well used in the story. The author creates his character very well, writes the character well, and the interactions with the main character are done very well in the book. I really enjoyed this book. I didn't know what to expect. What I got, I liked. And even though there's tropes in there, I didn't mind the story with those tropes. They seemed to fit, they worked. The characters written so well, the mysteries written well, there's some good thriller moments in there, some great twisted surprises. The author did a great job in this book. I rate it a 4 out of 5. I'll definitely read more by this author, and I'm working my way through this author's entire catalogue, and I can blame another person, another reader, for this, because it's watching someone else's video about this author that made me want to read all these books. On my channel, I review many thrillers. If you enjoy thrillers, check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to a video for another book I'm sure you'll enjoy.